Welcome back, everybody. In this video, I am going to show you my 4-part study plan to become a chess master. I'm not there yet. I'm 1700 USCF right now, but it has always been a life goal of mine to become a master. So I devised a 4-part study plan, 4 specific areas of improvement that I need to work on to be able to become a master. In this video, I'm going to show you what each of those is and exactly how I plan to improve in each of those areas. Let's jump into it. Each of these 4 overarching areas of improvement is listed in order of importance. So the first and most important one is middle game strategy. Masters know how to proceed in the position. They know the plan of attack. They know the strategic ideas in that position. And it's something that intermediate and advanced players like myself don't always know what to do. And the problem is if you don't know the correct plan of attack in the position, you're just going to be wasting moves, you're going to be going for the wrong ideas, and you're going to be leading yourself into a game that you cannot recover from because you do not know the correct plan of attack. So let me give you an example. There are a lot of different middle game ideas that you need to know if you want to be a master, and more specifically, you need to know which one to implement in the right position. For example, in this first position here, a master is going to know that with white to move, we're going to want to play b4 and b5. We want to go for the minority attack because we have a pawn side minority. Black has an extra pawn on the queen side, so we want to push b4, b5, and we want to soften up black's pawn chain. If we can get our pawn to b5 and black captures, we'll take back with the knight. That hits the queen. That also opens up the rook on the b file. Instead, if black lets us get this pawn to b5 and they do nothing, then we're going to take, and after the pawn recaptures, now we've opened up the b file for the rook. We've improved the scope of our rook. That's good. And additionally, this pawn on c6 is backwards. This can be a long-term weakness, especially if we can get a piece on c5. So this is the kind of plan that a master is going to know how to play. This is the position that they'll understand, and they'll know exactly how they want to play the next 3, the next 5 moves because they know the right ideas. Let me give you another example. In this position with white to move, a master is going to know that the correct idea is to play knight e3. You have got to stop this pass pawn on e4 from pushing forward. You have got to blockade that pawn with the knight. The knight is the best piece to blockade pawns with, and you cannot allow this pass pawn to push forward because it's very well protected, and it's going to take up way too much of your space. Black is going to be overwhelming you. So this is the kind of idea that higher level players know. This is the kind of position where they know exactly what to do. They know what the real threats are, and they know how to stop them. The threat here is this pass pawn. There are many other middle game ideas. You know, the idea of using the bishop pair, occupying outposts with your pieces, controlling open files with your rooks. There are numerous different middle game ideas, and you need to understand each of those middle game ideas to become a master and know exactly when to implement them. So now let me show you how I plan to improve on this idea of middle game strategy. To improve my strategic thinking, I have a few ideas, but the first one is to use this book called the Positional Chess Handbook. It's great because it breaks down different middle game ideas into their own chapters. So for example, there's one on how to use the bishop pair, how to exploit using the bishop pair and knowing what to do with it. There's one on how to know whether your knight is going to be better than a bishop, so figuring out when to exchange the correct minor piece. There's one on the opposite, knowing when a bishop is better than a knight. So this is one way I'm going to try to improve. And additionally, I'm going to start studying Grandmaster games. That's going to give me fantastic exposure to all of these different middle game ideas and exactly how to implement them. One book I have here is Bobby Fischer's My 60 Memorable Games. Bobby Fischer is one of the greats, so he's going to have fantastic different games with all kinds of different strategic ideas. This is going to give me great exposure, and I think if I can study each one of these ideas, see a lot more master games at very high levels, hopefully they'll start to sink in and I'll start to understand exactly what plan I need to go for. Now let's jump into my second area of improvement. My second most important area of improvement is tactics and calculation. The vast majority of games at the beginner and intermediate level, and even a good portion of games at the advanced level, are completely won or lost based on a tactic. You overlook a one-move threat, now you've just lost a piece, and you're very likely to lose a game. This is the kind of thing that you cannot allow to happen if you want to become a master. You have to have your tactical awareness be very sharp. You cannot make those mistakes yourself, and additionally, you have to punish your opponent when they come up because they are not going to come up frequently. I think this is slightly less important than middle game strategies, but still very, very important. You have to have very sharp tactical awareness, and you have to have very, very good calculation skills to be able to see multiple moves ahead. Now, to improve on my tactics and calculation ability, I'm going to continue using, first and foremost, Survival Puzzle Rush. This is a fantastic tool that I've mentioned before because you're going to expose yourself to new tactical patterns. That's always good. But additionally, you're going to progressively get to harder and harder tactics, but you have all the time in the world to sit there, think, and really challenge your calculation abilities, really challenge your visualization skills, and push yourself to calculate further and deeper than you have before. So that's number one. I've made a video on it before, so if you want to hear a more in-depth version of how I use that tool, then you can click the link right now. But the other idea that I have is to start studying studies and compositions. I have an example of a study up on the board right now, but before I go into that, studies and compositions are not exactly tactics, but they're very beautiful positions that require you to think maybe 5, sometimes even 10 moves ahead before you can actually see the whole position playing out correctly. So it's not exactly a tactic because it requires a deeper level of thinking and it requires deeper calculation. So this is going to really, really help improve my calculation skills. The position in front of us is called the ready study. Now it's white to move here, and white is actually hoping for a draw. So our pawn is very close to promotion, but the black king is here on h6. It's inside the square, so the black king at any point can capture this pawn if he wants to. Similarly, the black pawn is on a5 and is only a couple squares away from promotion. We're going to find it very difficult to run after this pawn because it's already 2 squares ahead of us. Now, white's drawing idea here is to play king b7 and then king c6. With each move, we get closer both to our own pawn and to the enemy pawn. If black just wants to capture on f6, then we're going to play king b5. We'll capture on a5. This is a draw. And instead, if black just wants to push their pawn, we will play king d6, and we're going to help escort our pawn on f6. We'll promote at the same time. So this is a relatively simple study, but there are much more complex studies and compositions out there, and they teach you new ideas, and they really, really push your calculation skills. They push your visualization 5, 10 moves deep, and it's really going to help you learn how to think more clearly and think more deeply about different chess positions. So this is another way that I plan to improve. Now let's move on to the third area of improvement. My third most important area of improvement is endgames. Masters are ruthless in the endgame. They punish endgame mistakes, and if you cannot convert your won endgames, and if you have trouble holding drawn endgames, then you're just going to get crushed by masters. So this is absolutely something that I need to improve on. Endgames are one of my weaknesses. First and foremost, I need to definitely nail down all of the basic theoretical endgames. So basic king and pawn endgames, basic endgames with rooks, like the Lucina position, and also the Philidor position. All of these I need to know like the back of my hand. Additionally, I need to study practical endgames as well. These are endgames that occur in real games. They're a little bit more complex. They have more pieces, more pawns involved. Specifically, I want to study pawn endgames and rook endgames. These are the two practical endgames that occur most frequently, so it's going to be the best use of your time, and you're going to be able to learn a lot about the actual endgame. In this position in front of us, we have a practical pawn endgame. It's white to move. White is actually completely winning, even though there are an equal number of pawns. So you have to know how to play this. You have to know how to win this. The idea here is to play f4 and f5. We're going to create a pass pawn on the king side. After this, we're going to be able to push black's king away. Notice that black's queen side is totally locked up because we have the pawn on b4. So either a5 or c5, we're just going to be able to take, and we're going to be able to promote that pawn. So with this extra pawn on the king side that we have, this is going to lead to a winning endgame. These are the kinds of practical positions. Again, the pawn endgames and the rook endgames are the ones that I want to spend most of my time on to really learn, because they come up so frequently, and you have to understand the correct winning ideas for these endgames. You have to know how to play them precisely. The two books that I plan to use to improve on my theoretical endgame knowledge and also my practical pawn and rook endgame knowledge respectively are Silman's Complete Endgame Course and also Shereshevsky's Endgame Strategy. If you want to learn more about these books, I actually made a video that I'm going to link now. Otherwise, let's move to the final area of improvement. The final piece of my study plan is openings. To me, this is the least important of the four. Openings, you can learn as you continue to play. You'll figure out what works and what doesn't work. You'll learn theory as you play. The other three, you really need to spend dedicated time on to learn the new ideas and understand them. However, openings are still very important. You're going to get absolutely crushed by masters and higher level players if you blunder in the opening and if you don't know what you're going for in the opening. To me, you do not need to study 10, 12 moves deep of theory. You just need to know the basics, and you also need to know generally where you want your pieces in that opening and what your middle game idea is. What do you normally play for in the middle game? So as an example here with the black pieces, this is the Sicilian. After knight f3, there's d6. And now let's say we're in the open Sicilian. I play knight f6. White responds knight c3. I go knight c6. And let's say bishop g5. So this is the Richter-Rauser variation. In this variation, I know I play e6. And after queen d2, I don't know all the theory here. But what I do know is that white intends to castle queenside. And black needs to play a6 and b5. This is going to be an opposite side castling game. That's how we know we want to play a6 and b5, start our own attack on the queen side as soon as we can. Of course, we want to defend this knight on c6 before we play b5, but this is a great example of an opening where I know the basics, the first few moves. I also know the middle game plan, so I know what we go for after the opening is done. And frankly, that's what I think is the most important. That's what you need to nail down. I also made a video specifically on how I study chess openings, so check that out if you want to learn more. But to me, these are the two key pieces of information that you need to have for the openings. You don't need to study 10, 12 moves deep of theory. It's probably not going to pop up in your game anyway. Just know the basics and make sure you hone down what to do in the middle game so you have your middle game plan. So that is my 4-part study plan to become a chess master. Please do not think that I'm just going to read the books that I've mentioned, just going to look at the positions that I showed you in this video, and then I'm going to be a master. No, this is going to take a lot of time, potentially years, and there are going to be a lot more resources that I'm going to look into. But I do stand by the fact that these 4 areas of improvement are the 4 most important to be able to get to that next level of becoming a national master. I really do think these are the 4 most important, and I also think that they are listed in the order of importance. I think middle game strategy is the most important, then tactics and calculation, after that studying the endgame, and then finally studying openings. These are the 4 areas of improvement if you want to become a chess master. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, consider subscribing and also give this video a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you think there is anything missing from my study plan, especially if there's some overarching area of improvement that you think is more important, or maybe if you disagree with the ordering. Let me know in the comments.